Everyone, and thank you for choosing King Jordan Radio. It is Thursday, August 4th, 2016. This is King Jordan Radio you're listening to. Tonight on the program, we're going to get into a Tulsa dentist charged with the murder of a 19-month-old baby. We have the leaked audio of an NYPD captain allegedly telling one of the officers, you need to arrest more black people. Right here in New York City, we have the exclusive. We'll take a look at the Freddie grave case, and we'll play some statements made by the prosecution, and we'll get our legal expert to weigh in on that. Also, just coming down is the George Zimmerman did get punched in the face for bragging about beating up Trayvon Martin, and we'll get into that. Okay, tonight on the show we are joined. We are with a forensic expert. He also has his book, The Life and Death of a Medical Death Investigator. Please welcome back to the show. You see him on Nancy Grace. Ladies and gentlemen, Joseph Scott Morgan joins us. Good evening, Joe. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Jordan. Thanks for having me back, and hello to everybody in the audience, and hello to the guy you're about to introduce, Alex.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. He is a CNN legal analyst. He's been around with the court TV days. And, of course, anyone in need of a good attorney could contact Alex's law firm, one of the best in New York City and all around the world. With that in mind, let's bring in the one and only Alex Sanchez, who joins us. Good evening, Alex. How are you?
Yeah, Jordan, how's it going? It's great to be here. I'm still waiting for you to play the theme to Peter Gunn. I've been waiting for months. Would you please play it already?
I played that. The Bonanza theme.
No, you played Perry Mason, and that was good. But Peter Gunn, now that's on a different level. So when you get a chance, dig up that tape. Joe Scott Morgan knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, I sure do. It's a great piece of music. Gets me pumped up,
man. Okay, no question. We'll get to that. All right, let's get into this news that's just breaking. George Zimmerman punched in the face, allegedly, for killing Trayvon. Here's the sound, and we'll talk on the other side.
Story you haven't seen online yet or on any other station. Only Eyewitness News found out George Zimmerman had another confrontation where he had to call Seminole County deputies for help. Investigative reporter Carla Ray is the first reporter to break the details in this latest case, and Carla, he's considered the victim this time.
Yeah, he called 911 over the weekend after a man punched him square in the face at a bar so hard it broke his glasses. But witnesses told deputies Zimmerman had it coming.
What started the argument? He recognized me.
Inside this local bar and grill right on the St. Johns River in Sanford, investigators say the infamous George Zimmerman is accused of attracting trouble again.
He told me he was going to kill me. He told me to shoot me. He punched me in the face.
Only Eyewitness News obtained Zimmerman's latest desperate call to 911, asking for help from inside Gators Riverside over the weekend. According to this report, Zimmerman claimed he was explaining to people sitting at a table that he shot Trayvon Martin in self-defense when a large man approached and asked, quote, "You're bragging about that?" before punching him square in the face.
This man punched me in the face.
Okay, is he still there?
Yep. He said he's going to kill me.
Does he have any weapons?
He need to send like 3 or 4 cops.
Zimmerman is considered the victim in this case, but witnesses told deputies the problem started because he was bragging about killing the unarmed teen in 2012, claiming he said, quote, "I love your tattoos. My name is George Zimmerman. You know, that guy who killed Trayvon Martin," and even showing his identification card. It's not the first time his acquittal has made him a target. Just over a year ago, Matthew Apperson was arrested and accused of trying to kill Zimmerman during a road rage incident.
The guy punched me in the face and called me a lover.
Now, the man who threw that punch allegedly in this case could face charges, but he hasn't been identified yet. We will, of course, keep you posted.
Okay, Alex Sanchez, this must be a tough person to represent, even if you got the acquittal, like Mark O'Mara is experiencing right now. What do you make of this? What would you do, A, if he was your client, and would you just tell him to keep going? Because he's going to get himself killed one of these days if he doesn't, keep his mouth shut.
Yeah, this Zimmerman guy, he doesn't seem to be able to keep himself out of the news. He gets in trouble because didn't he have fights with former girlfriends? And every time you turn around, he's got some type of a problem. It's amazing to me this guy's still walking the earth, to tell you the truth, because you can't act the way you're acting and go about bragging, killing people, and identifying yourself. Even if somehow you believe he was justified, it would be improper to go around bragging,
right.
Hey, I'm the guy that killed Trayvon Martin. What kind of attitude is that?
Selling the gun on eBay.
It's just, selling the gun on eBay. I mean, it's just a matter of time before somebody's going to come up to you and they're going to punch you in the face or worse. And you know what? I don't think there's very many people out there that are going to have too much sympathy for George Zimmerman. Now, I know Joe Scott Morgan is practically crying because George Zimmerman got punched in the face. But, I'm not in that league. I'm not in that league with you, Joe. I'm sorry.
I don't think anybody's crying except for George.
Alex, man.
But, Alex, would you have a press conference? That's a tough one. Would you hold a press conference saying that you no longer represent him if you got him acquitted, like Mark O'Mara did and Don West back in 2012?
Mark O'Mara seems like such a reasonable guy, but I think even he was beginning to have doubts about George Zimmerman, because after he represented him, George Zimmerman kept getting in one bit of trouble after another bit of trouble, and now I can't imagine Mark O'Mara wanting to, continue to represent a miscreant like George Zimmerman. I mean, this guy is a degenerate on the worst level. I still don't understand why Joe supports him. Could you explain that?
Oh, my God.
I didn't know Joe supports him. Joe, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I don't know. Alex is such the provocateur tonight. No, I do not support this person. As a matter of fact,
person is putting it nicely.
Actually, I have evidence from my own professional background demonstrating that it's not wise to do what this guy is doing, tempting the fate.
No.
There have been any number of instances where I have been present for autopsies in revenge killings, and this guy's got one of the biggest targets on him, certainly of anyone in America this century thus far. The best thing this guy can do is recede into the night. He needs to go to mass. He needs to do something. And thank God every day he's still drawing breath and keep his mouth shut. That's the best thing he can do. I don't know, maybe join the Merchant Marine and go sail around the world or something and assume another identity. But he's on a very slippery slope right now. I think I was on the last time on your show, Jordan, the last time he got into the incident where the guy fired a round through his car in the road rage thing. And I think Alex was on with me that night, and we were kind of just shaking our head. I remember then. I can't believe that this has happened again. I mean, I guess I can. I don't know if this guy has too many synapses that are firing in the correct order. He needs to exit stage left very, very quickly.
Yeah, they need to make a movie about this guy. I mean, this guy's just
I think they will,
fate. Yeah, he keeps tempting fate. He's inviting people to come and attack him. And, he can't help himself. This is what sickness is. The guy is a sick guy. And he can't keep his mouth shut. he has the need to brag about killing another human being, even if he was 100% justified, which he was not as far as I'm concerned. But let's say, for argument's sake, this guy Trayvon Martin was coming at him with a hatchet, and as a last ditch to save himself, he shot him. Even then, you don't brag. I mean, there's certain things you don't go around bragging and boasting about, and that's taking the life of another person. And for him to go around and show business cards, I'm the Trayvon Martin, and talking in bars like he's some type of a hero. Today, I mean, this guy's number's coming up. We're going to be doing a show in the next year or so. His number's coming up. Somebody crazier than him is going to approach him, and it's going to be all over.
I tell you what's really kind of a tragedy to me, that he's doing this right next to the St. Johns River, which is one of the most beautiful rivers in the United States if you've never been there, and one of my favorite places. And there he is polluting it with his presence. So I'm doubly kind of down in the mouth about this one. So, what can I say?
Okay, we have new details emerge about the Tulsa, Oklahoma dentist now in jail. Let's take a listen to the story, and we'll talk about it.
These court documents released today reveal disturbing new details about that baby's death. We're also learning more about the dentist charged with killing him. Just released court documents reveal Burt Franklin, who is a married father of 4, was having an affair with the child's mother and was watching the child alone on Sunday evening. The documents show the Tulsa dentist provided police inconsistent accounts of how the boy sustained a serious head injury in his care. He is now charged with first-degree murder in the death of 1-year-old Lincoln Lewis. According to court documents, the child's mother, who was upstairs, told investigators she heard a loud thud, and the child never woke up after the alone time with Franklin. He died on Monday. We're also learning new details about Franklin's relationship with the family. Franklin had threatened to kill the baby's biological father and, quote, skin him in Bricktown, according to court documents. Those documents also reveal Franklin exhibited controlling behavior toward the child's mother, and she had no knowledge he was having an affair. Now, I did call Franklin's dental office in Tulsa today. A receptionist answered that she said they're no longer accepting appointments. Reporting in downtown Oklahoma City, Jonathan Cooper, KOCO 5 News.
Right, Joseph Scott Morgan, you were following this story yesterday on the Nancy Grace story. What can you tell us about this?
This young baby, I say young baby, I think he's 19 months old. Lincoln, I think is his name. He was born grossly premature, and developmentally he was challenged as far as the formation of his cranium, and so he was one of these little kids early on that he's had to wear a protective headgear. The bones in his skull were not fully fused, so he's in an at-risk group anyway. What my understanding was as of yesterday relative to the injuries, this poor little baby has sustained 2 non-communicating skull fractures. And what that means is that these are specific areas that have been identified by the medical examiner in this particular case, where if you've got 2 separate areas with a skull fracture, this means that you're going to have 2 blows. It's not like you've cracked an egg and you have one continuously running ridge. So this kid at minimum had to have had 2 head strikes. He's got retinal hemorrhages, which many times are consistent with shaken baby syndrome or allegedly shaken baby syndrome. There's still, even now to this day, there's still some people question the existence of this manifestation. But that primarily goes to kids that are still alive and that develop blindness after one of these events. And the baby also had intracranial swelling, which essentially, if the audience will take their finger and put it down at the very the back of their skull, run it down the back of their skull until they feel where their spine connects onto their skull. That's what is called the C4 or the atlas. It's in this area slightly above, just inside the skull, where we have what's called the primal brain. That controls all of our autonomic nervous system. That is the things that tell our heart to beat, the little impulses that go out to our lungs to tell us to breathe. Well, what happened over a period of time, his breathing became labored, Jordan, because his brain was swelling. There was one report that the child was heard to have been snoring heavily, which is an indication of babies that age don't snore loudly and heavily. Many times that's associated with an indwelling head injury. That's a loss of consciousness, a loss of oxygenation. And, of course, the mother finally realized the child was not breathing. And very, very tragic case. It's another one of these cases involving boyfriends. I'm not a big fan of boyfriends. I don't care what status they are of being in the house with small children. I'll probably catch flack for that, but I don't really care. I've seen too many bad things happen with boyfriends in homes. And I also have to ask, what in the hell is a mother thinking with having this guy in the house exhibiting behaviors that have already been documented as being controlling, making threatening comments about the child's biological father, that he was going to kill him and even cut off his genitalia. And she's going to go take a nap and leave this person in charge of this little angel. I have some serious questions about that as well. So I have a major problem with this case all the way around. This guy obviously has got serious issues, and I'm glad he's off the street. And certainly another level to this is kind of troubling, is the fact that he's a medical professional. And even though he's a dentist, he still understands head trauma, and he understands special needs kids too, and that he would perpetrate this upon this child is just absolutely unconscionable.
And Joseph, the other side, the defense is going to get an expert, at least try to get an expert to say that their case is wrong. I mean, can you get an expert to say something, of the baby's death in terms of that there was no foul play? I'm sure it's possible, anything for money, but
well, no, I don't like to say anything. Yeah, I don't know. I don't like to say anything for money, but you can. It's possible for someone that would look at this case, evaluating the thing. They would say, well, what is it within the realm of possibility that it could have gone down like this? Okay, and that question can be posed to a practitioner. You can pose that question to them just like you can to someone that's working for the state, like the medical examiner's office, and say, is this within the realm of possibility? And that's what we deal with, in our field and in forensics in general. And yeah, there are plausible things, but when you start to get up into multiple injuries as opposed to a single injury, the defense runs into problems with that, I think. And take this with a lot of these other circumstantial things that kind of surround it. I think that it's going to be a tough case to handle. But this guy will probably get a pretty good attorney. He appears to have some means about him. He's living in a house in Oklahoma City. His home is valued at like $1.4 million in Oklahoma City, and you can get a whole lot of house for $1.4 million in Oklahoma City. So he's got some. Money.
Can. Alex Sanchez weigh in on this case, and in terms of this guy having any chances to get acquitted.
Two things Joe said that I kind of zeroed in on. And one was the statements. That's the first thing that I zeroed in on, was the statements that this guy had been making to this girlfriend, the mother of the child, that he wanted to kill her husband and skin him and even cut his penis off. I mean, if you're a woman and somebody makes that type of statement, I don't understand how you cannot possibly come to the realization that the guy must be a nut. Because who on earth is going to be making egregious statements like that, talking about skinning people alive? You know, the second thing Joe said that was kind of interesting was he said that, you know, he's very leery, let's say, of boyfriends coming and living with women. Now, I've represented a million boyfriends, and I understand what Joe's saying, because I have seen many, many cases of women that have, with children, that have invited boyfriends to come live with them, and the boyfriends have committed egregious acts against the children. In the cases that I've represented, a lot of it has been sexual molestation of the kids. Do you know that in the Arab world, when people get divorced, the children go with the father? And the reason why the children go with the father is because it's felt that if the children were with the mother and another man came into the house, there was a great likelihood of abuse of the children. So in the Arab world, the divorced children end up staying with the father to avoid that possibility. I thought that might be interesting for your audience to know. In terms of defense, you know, I'm sure that he's going to argue the kid fell somehow and banged his head in two places, against the wall, maybe against the crib when he fell down, and then on the floor when he hit his head, and that's how he got cracks on both sides of his head. And on top of that, he had already had he had already had a weakened skull. And, you know, I don't think that you're going to use the same comparisons between a normal skull and a skull that's very weak. Maybe they break differently. Who knows? But this is going to be the defense that is likely to be proposed by the dentist and his lawyers.
And Alex, in a small town like Oklahoma City, you know, obviously all jails are bad, but what would you say about in a small community a la OKC? Would you think it would be tougher there for a citizen more than, let's say, you know, Los Angeles prison or New York, Chicago? Or you think,
you know, like
just same thing.
You said it right. You know, jails are never good. They're bars, and they have to feed you. But you know, all jails in the United States are governed. Right, but they are governed by certain minimal, you know, standards. You know, either by the state or by the federal government. I mean, you have to feed an inmate. You have to give him a place to sleep. You have to provide him medical care. You have to provide him he has to be able to breathe and have clothes so he's not cold or something. You have to allow him to have legal representation. So, you know, you're going to get minimal treatment in this country. You're not supposed to be gratuitously beating up an inmate or torturing them. But, you know, some jails are better than other jails. You know, some jails in Texas, for example, inmates were dying because the temperature was so hot over there and there was no air conditioning in the jail. And inmates were dying of just being overheated in the place. So no jail is great. Some jails are worse than other jails. There are minimum standards that are expected to be imposed upon the inmates and upon the jail facility. But I would say in a small community, they probably don't spend a whole lot of money on their jails. They're trying to save money. So wherever they can cut corners, they're going to cut corners.
Joe, you familiar with Tulsa, Oklahoma?
No, I've been through it, but no, I mean it's. I think that this guy's, and I can't speak for Alex, but I think that he would probably agree in the sense that if this guy's going to be in population there, and they find out that he's brought harm to this little baby, there are a lot of those people that inhabit those places that had harm brought to them by boyfriends. Let me emphasize that. And their dads, too, but by boyfriends. They have common past, and that is not going to bode well for him in that environment. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, you know, criminals.
Alex, if you're, let's say, hypothetically, prosecutors have Joe Scott Morgan, and you want to get somebody that makes this guy humanized. What do you say to these? Would you say to somebody like that without breaking the law? I mean, what would you basically say? Something like, can you find reasonable doubt in this case? I mean, how would
you're talking
an
about
investigator
an expert?
Defense expert.
Well, it's unethical and it's downright illegal to just pay an expert or pay somebody just to say something which is not based upon the evidence or the lack of evidence that exists in a case, right? So you're gonna take the evidence that you have, the medical record. What I would do in a case, I'm not looking to manipulate the criminal justice system. I'm not looking to do that. I mean, I like to win, but I'm not willing to throw every bit of principle down the drain.
Get an expert in there that says that A, B, and C is possible.
Yeah, well, that's what you might do. That's what you might do. Joe laid it out. Joe laid it out very clearly. Okay, we get it. You get the medical records of this baby, or the autopsy records. It shows that they had injuries on two sides of the head. Let's say Joe says that's not normally possible. If you're hit with a blow, it indicates more than one blow, right? But the question is it possible? Is it within the realm of medical possibility or physical possibility that this injury could have been caused by a fall, let's say, in which the baby first hit itself on one side of the head and then the baby flipped over and somehow hit itself on the other side of the head, based upon the physical evidence that exists in the room at the time, for example. And that's not unreasonable to ask an expert to see if that's possible. And an expert may say, based upon the totality of circumstances and the information that I have and the physical outlay of the room, that is a possibility of how this could have occurred. So, yes, that's how you'd approach that.
And Joseph, have you ever seen maybe an expert on the defense through HLN or watching any trials that you said to yourself down deep, I don't know about this one smells fishy? Have you ever seen an expert take an oath and then just say things that you wouldn't say?
Yeah, I have. I've seen it. I've known people that have engaged in that behavior, and there's a number of derogatory terms that are applied to them in the community. I think probably the most common is forensic prostitute. And what you get is you have somebody that is credentialed, and perhaps they're no longer practicing, say, in a governmental construct, and they're hired guns. They will go out and they will do these things, and Alex is absolutely right. It's completely unethical and highly illegal because it's perjury. Is what it comes down to. You're lying, and people at home that are listening to us, and they have to understand. And I'm talking about from an expert's perspective. If I testify as an expert in a case, that doesn't mean that I sit there and I say, beyond a shadow of a doubt. That's terminology that you never use in court. You never say, I am 100% certain. First off, I'm going to be faced with some bright person like Alex that's going to, as soon as I make an absolute statement like that, he's going to tear into me, and he's going to completely, me before the jury. He's going to completely humiliate me. And that's very, very easy to do if you speak in absolute. So you have to give yourself some wiggle room, but you also have to understand that it's an imperfect universe, that there are odd things that happen. There are kids that take falls and they sustain multiple traumatic events. So it's going to be, Alex used the term a moment ago, and I love this term, it's a totality. It's a totality of the circumstances. It's not just the physical evidence, but it's also the timing, the context, the environment, And then, of course, what you're finding at the autopsy. Frame all of that. Working in a courtroom and being in there is not a lazy man's exercise. You have to be on your toes, and you're building a house. They talked about that in My Cousin Vinny, and that's the God's honest truth. You are building a house when these guys are building cases. And, Alex he's the architect. I'm just, somebody like me, I'm just merely a brick in that house. But I know what my job is. And whether I'm retained by the prosecution or I'm retained by the defense, I have to keep things within certain parameters. I could wind up, being in a striped suit somewhere.
Yeah, and by the way, Joe, the question that they ask experts, you're right, they never ask experts. Can you say beyond a reasonable doubt? No, they never ask an expert that. But the question they do ask is, can you state to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, or can you state to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty that such and such occurred? And the expert may say yes, right? So that's usually the question that they do ask.
Yes.
But you're right. I'll tell you one thing. You asked whether or not, have you ever seen an expert? Yeah, I saw. If you look at the O.J. Simpson trial, they got a photographic expert. I can't remember his name offhand. Maybe Joe remembers his name. But they got a photographic expert to say that the photograph that was in the National Enquirer showing O.J. Simpson wearing Bruno Magli shoes. Now, that was very important because the person that killed O.J. Simpson's wife was wearing Bruno Magli shoes. O.J. Simpson said, no, I never owned a pair of Bruno Magli shoes. But then they found an old photograph.
I would never wear those damn shoes.
Right, but there was a photograph in the National Enquirer predating the murders in which he's wearing Bruno Magli shoes. So they call an expert. The expert says, "Oh no, this is a false picture. The lighting is off. Everything." That's
and
what he
said I wouldn't wear those ugly shoes.
But that was O.J. Simpson. But the expert said the photograph that you brought into court showing him Bruno Magli shoes is phony, is fraudulent, based upon lighting and this and that. You can find an expert to say anything. You really could.
Yeah, you can.
There are a lot of unethical experts out there. Not everybody's like Joe, who just is as straight as you can get.
First off, I don't testify in cases at all anymore, period. I hate going to court. It's not my thing. I much prefer teaching. And so you're not going to find me in a court. So that's just not something I like to do. I will consult every now and then, but I'm not going to go sit down and swear to anything. I don't like that environment anymore.
We have NYPD officers allegedly confirming that there is a quota system, and this story is based out of New York. Hot 97 is the station. Let's take a listen, and we'll talk. And listen closely to what the captain is telling one of the officers.
New York Daily News has put this audio of a NYPD officer being, it sounds like a performance review with a lieutenant. Play the audio.
Who commits the crimes in this situation? Who commits the crimes? Well, it's mostly teenagers, anywhere between the ages of 15 and 19, mostly male, blacks, and Hispanics. Okay. Who are you stopping? Everybody. I stop everybody. 54 tabs up to 820. I'm not targeting anybody. First of all, you just told me who bad guys are. Yeah, I know that, but there's also other people who are committing violations as well. I'm not saying that there's not violations being made. Male blacks that you commit the crime. Plenty of people that write summonses too are male blacks and male Hispanics. Male blacks. Not for the whole year, and I have. You're telling me for the whole year, I only stopped 2 male blacks for summonses. 820. 7 Hispanics, 7 other, 10 whites, 3 Asians. So where are you targeting the perp that you just told me? Well, like I said, if I don't see a perp jumping over the turnstile, what am I supposed to do to him? That's what I'm saying. These people are not going to pop. How do I know that? 50% chance. A female Hispanic that I stopped, and she said they did pop actually for a warrant, and I arrested her. The Hispanics that were supposed to be going up that are committing the crimes, the people that I'm targeting everybody. Who male blacks? Whoever's out there. If I catch...
So you only saw 2 male blacks jump the turnstile?
If you're saying that's what's in front of you, then yes, that's all I saw. There's 2 male blacks for the whole year jumping the turnstile. That's what you're saying is in front of you. I stopped everybody. It doesn't matter. I'm not looking at any nationality, any race, any gender. Whoever goes through and commits a violation, I am stopping.
Now, I need somebody from the New York Police Department to call if you would like to address this, or any police department who knows or has heard conversations like this. Because what it sounds like is quotas, which we know that there's a conversation out there right now where people are openly talking about how the police department has quotas.
Which sounds nuts.
Right. All right. Then what I'm hearing here is the person doing the review pressuring this officer saying, you're not targeting perps in the demo that you know commit most of the crime.
Right.
Then I also hear him say specifically you only saw 2 male blacks.
Right.
So not only are they focusing in demo, but then specifically gender and in demo.
Right. You're telling me you only saw 2 male blacks jumping the turnstiles?
And this is an hour-long review that's on the SoundCloud for the Daily News.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know enough. But what it sounds like to me is this officer is defending the fact that, yes, I've written summonses, I've done all that, but am I hearing it right that the lieutenant isn't happy that the officer didn't get enough people in a certain ethnic or age demographic? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's what it sounds like.
And why does that matter? Is the next question.
You're not filling your quota. So if you want to fill your quota, you need to go to these areas because all of these people are committing the crimes.
Well, I think also...
You want criminals, go there.
I think also they're saying the overall quota may not have anything to do with race, right? They just want to get a certain number of arrests,
or tickets written
or whatever. But they're specifically saying do it with these specific kinds of people and not white
because
people.
You know they're the ones committing the crime. So why aren't you?
Well, either they know they're the ones committing the crimes, or they're the ones that we want to say are committing the crime. One or the other.
Right.
Because it's not more likely that a black person is committing a crime. It sounds like this is a subway situation.
Well, they brought up turnstiles.
She brings up a Hispanic female. Like if I saw a Hispanic female, I gave her a summons. But then at one point, is he questioning? Like you mean is he asking? Did you just see 2 black males the whole time? Is he questioning the fact? Is he questioning
that he only wrote 2 summonses for 2 black males? That's a problem.
He doesn't believe him. He doesn't believe him.
So I heard it right. He's questioning him, right?
Yeah, you need to fill your quota.
Is there anybody that can enlighten us? Because I could easily jump out the window, and I know that's what people want me to do. It's NYPD is out here profiling and targeting, and yes, I do know that. But for the sake of opening the dialogue, I want to take some calls from people who live and work in this to better understand it before I jump out the window. You got to give it a second, guys. You got to give it a second. You got to let it breathe. You got to let people walk to it. Walk on up to it. We know it's happening, but let them walk on up to it and articulate it themselves.
It's bad that I just don't even find this story surprising. This is sort of like the least of the problems.
But this is, as what do they say, like the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, this is
because when people feel picked on, right, by the people who are supposed to be upholding the law, what happens next? They start disrespecting them because you're picking on me. Right. And then that disrespect leads to people trying to say, oh, you're resisting arrest, and you're doing this, and you're doing that, which leads to the things that we're seeing on the cameras. Right? So it starts with people feeling picked on.
Yeah.
From the New York City Police Department, Ronald, how you doing, sir?
I'm all right. Good morning, Ebro.
Good morning. So you heard the audio that we played. There's an hour's worth of audio on the Daily News SoundCloud, but the audio, it has the headline. Let me read it to you. Where it says basically, NYPD officer is critiqued by lieutenant for not arresting enough blacks and Hispanics.
I just have a few things to say. First of all, when I heard the audio, I was a little outraged in myself, because I think it's just giving you one side of the story.
Okay.
So it's not, it depends on where you work as well.
Are you a black officer or a white officer? Sorry, sir.
I'm African American.
Okay.
And so it depends on where you work. But when
stop right there, Ronald, because I want to do this in pieces, so I make sure I wrap my head around the whole thing. It starts where you work. What starts?
on who would be most likely stopped. If you work in a neighborhood where it's mostly African Americans and Latinos, the chances are you're going to stop mostly African Americans and Latinos.
Obviously, yes. Okay.
You know, so I'm still questioning. You know, actually, where did this officer work? What part of New York? You know, what part of the city?
But at what point, Ronald, does a lieutenant or someone giving a review question the ethnicity of people or gender of people getting stopped? Why would that ever be in a part of the conversation?
Honestly, bro, it shouldn't be. Point blank and simple. It shouldn't be. And in all of my career, I was never questioned like that. You know, I never had a boss ask me any question in regards to, you know, who I was stopping, what was their race, what, you know. I guess because I tried to always do things right and by the book. But in this situation, I'm a little outraged, and the reason for me calling is I saw this on social media yesterday, and so many cops jumped on the side of, oh, this guy is probably a do-nothing or this or that. And to hear that audio, I'm outraged, and I want to say this is because we can't always defend something another cop doing.
That's right.
You know, we got to be pro-right and wrong. We can't be pro-police all the time.
Right.
At some point, we have to stand up together and say, okay, this is not right.
Well, how about this? And I'll take it a step further. Let's assume that everyone would prefer to be pro-police. Let's assume that socially we would all want to know and stand behind our officers who are out there upholding the law and making sure we're all safe.
Right.
We always want to do that, right?
Yeah.
But let's also understand that there are thousands of police officers.
Hundreds of
thousands in the country. And people, and they're humans, yes?
Yeah,
of course.
And guess what humans do?
Make mistakes.
Make mistakes.
Exactly, yes.
So it's never about us versus them. That's not what and that's what frustrates me the most, is that everyone wants to draw this fine line like there's no gray or there's no people who make mistakes. Guys, there are people who make mistakes everywhere on every job, in every career.
Yep. And the
police included.
I still stand firm with what I said. Sometimes we have to stand up and say, okay, this may have not been right, or the way they went about this was not right. What can we do to make sure this doesn't occur again? That's where I stand with it.
Well, that's exactly right. That it's people like you. The biggest opportunity for change are with officers like you. And I'm not saying that's easy, by the way.
No.
Standing up when you know you have a lot of people saying, you sure you want to say that? That requires a lot of bravery and a lot of unity and people coming together to do that.
But when you hear people like Ronald, thanks Ronald for calling, it makes other people feel safe.
Exactly.
True. Rob.
Howard Sanchez, you come from New York City. What do you make of what the captain said? And then what do you make of the officer with the rebuttal?
Yes, I was born and raised in New York. Went to school, high school, college, law school in New York. I work in New York. I'm a criminal defense attorney in New York. I'm not jumping on the bandwagon that this cop was acting like some, vicious racist or something like that. And believe me, if I thought it was, you'd hear it from me, because that would be indefensible. But I'm not buying that. I'm not buying it at all, because the way I see it, my experience with the police there, and having represented probably over 100,000 people at this point, cops, they don't care what color you are. If you're jumping a turnstile and they're monitoring who's jumping the turns, they don't care what color you are. They don't care whether you look, whether you're white or black or green. They don't care if you're Hasidic. They don't care if you're Jewish or Greek or Italian. They don't care. If you're jumping a turnstile, you're going to be arrested. Okay? To me, the idea that some cop is going to come in or a supervisor is going to come in and say, hey, how come you're not arresting more black people, is almost ridiculous. So I'm not buying into that. Okay? What I think was happening here, was that particular cop was making a paltry amount of arrests compared to what would normally occur in that district. That's what was going on. And apparently he arrested 2 black males, and the supervisor said, hey, you only arrested 2 black males. It wasn't like he was saying, hey, you got to go out and arrest more black people. Come on, that's ridiculous. Who in this day and age does that, But what I think he was saying is, wait a minute, how come in this district First of all, you're grossly under arresting people for these type of crimes. And I think the question he was asking is, look, how come you only arrested, for example, you only arrested 2 black people? Like, what's that about? You know, I'm not jumping on the bandwagon like everybody else or the panic train that this guy's a vicious racist, control the police department and get them to arrest black and Hispanic people. I don't see it that way. And I think that officer that called up, he originally was supporting the police. But I think once he was questioned by the people on the radio, I think that he kind of reversed himself. He was a little embarrassed. He felt he was going to be humiliated or put himself in the public spotlight, and he started backtracking. That's my view of what happened here.
I totally agree with you. And Joseph Scott, what did you think of that situation? What you heard, and then the officer who called in.
Having worked in government, in public safety, my entire career, up until I entered university, I think the question for me, certainly, I am in no way qualified to comment on, in any way, on how NYPD manages things. I'm in no way qualified how people in New York City do things, okay? However, I think that the question I would ask is, I'm not interested in what the captain had to say. I'm interested in what is compelling the captain to say these things from the perspective of not as a, but who up the chain has established this whole dehumanizing goat roping, as we say in the South, that they have, where you go through and you have to classify everybody by handle, as opposed to how many human beings are you arresting? Because I get so sick and tired of this idea of quotas. It's a dangerous, dangerous thing to get involved in, period. That they're sitting around and even having a discussion, and I don't care if it's demographically oriented or not, they're having a discussion about what groups of people are being arrested. That sounds like that's some kind of nonsensical sociological modeling to me, and which is built on a very, very shaky foundation, I think, and it's one of the things that's ruining our country. That's my perspective. I see this just based upon his language and having supervised people in a rather, certainly not as large as New York City, but in a rather large metropolitan town. This smacks of the kind of social engineering that we live in, that we have to identify people like this, and I think that it's troubling to me on several levels. As far as what the police officer called in and said, yeah, I think he did crawfish a little bit, but you know what? I don't think he has any business calling in the first place. This is one of those. He just needs to stay out of the fray, keep his mouth shut. I don't think that it's the forum for him to engage in banter with somebody on a radio station about these types of things. He did speak some truth, though. He needed to have more information to put it in context. I agree. It needs to be put in context, but I think the context I'm looking for is, what are the people up the chain telling these police officers that they have to do on a daily basis to do their job? Is it enforce the law even-handedly and not look at people based on color? I think that's the biggest thing, and that's the most troubling. And that's all I have to say about the matter.
Okay, the Freddie case has come to an end, and here's the background of what.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. Today, Baltimore finds itself at the epicenter of a national conflict between urban and rural populations of color and the law enforcement agencies that are sworn to protect and serve them. It is a struggle that strikes at the basic ideas of self-determination, justice, equality, and sadly, humanity in America. However fitting it is for observers to use the untimely death of Freddie Carlos Gray Jr. as a barometer of our nation's progress on police brutality, my professional role in this matter is plain: to seek justice on behalf of an innocent 25-year-old man who was unreasonably taken into custody after fleeing in his neighborhood, which just happens to be a high-crime neighborhood, and had his spine partially severed in the back of a Baltimore police wagon. As the chief prosecutor for Baltimore City, I took an oath to uphold justice and to treat every individual within my jurisdiction equally and fairly under the law. I take my oath very seriously. Since the start of my administration, we have been and continue to be wholly committed to creating a fair and equitable justice system for all and holding people accountable for crimes that they commit regardless of age, race, color, sex, creed, socioeconomic status, or in this case, occupation. As a chief prosecutor elected by the people of Baltimore City, I made a promise that my prosecutors and I will never cower from our obligation to prosecute crimes where we believe that we have probable cause that a crime was committed. We're sworn to not only uphold the law and hold violent repeat offenders accountable, but we're also sworn to apply justice fairly and equally to everyone, even those that take an oath to protect and serve our communities. As prosecutors, we are servants of all victims and witnesses of crime in Baltimore City, and we fight each and every day to ensure that perpetrators of crime see their day in court and are held accountable for their actions or inactions where there's a relational duty that requires such. We never cowered in our battle for justice for 16-year-old Felicia Barnes, 1-year-old Carter Scott, bicyclist and loving father Thomas Palermo, or Shatia Lansdowne and the various other sexual assault survivors of Nelson Clifford. As I previously stated, the decision to prosecute 6 police officers was not and has never been an indictment on the entire Baltimore Police Department. Although some have tried to invalidate my family's long-standing service as public officers, I know firsthand the sacrifices, the dedication, the commitment it takes to protect and serve our communities. For those that believe that I'm anti-police, it's simply not the case. I'm anti-police brutality, and I need not remind you that the only loss and the greatest loss in all of this was that of Freddie Gray's life. For over a year, my office has been forced to remain silent on all 6 of the cases pertaining to and surrounding the death of Freddie Gray. Despite being physically and professionally threatened, mocked, ridiculed, harassed, and even sued, we've respected and fulfilled our obligation in dutiful silence in accordance with Judge Barry Williams' gag order, restricting any commentary from the state. In accordance with my oath to pursue justice over convictions, I've refused to allow the grandstanding of some and the hyperbole of others to diminish our resolve to seek justice on behalf of this young man. I was elected the prosecutor. I signed up for this, and I can take it. Because no matter how problematic and troublesome it has been for my office, my prosecutors, my family, and me personally, it pales in comparison to what mothers and fathers all across this country, specifically Freddie Gray's mother, Gloria Darden, or Richard Shipley, Freddie Gray's stepfather, goes through on a daily basis, knowing their son's mere decision to run from the police proved to be a lethal one. Please know that even though the media has made this about everything but the untimely death of your son, my office has never wavered in our commitment to seeking justice on his behalf. My team of prosecutors, led by 2 highly respected veteran attorneys, Chief Deputy Michael Schatzow, Deputy State's Attorney Janice Bledsoe, right here, and Assistant State's Attorney John Butler, Matt Pillion, Sarah Akhtar, Law Clerk Michael Fiorenza have devoted countless hours and made countless sacrifices to ensure accountability on your son's behalf. I'm extremely proud of my team, who never lost sight of why we were fighting so hard, your son. As the world has witnessed over the past 14 months, the prosecution of on-duty police officers in this country is unsurprisingly rare and blatantly fraught with systemic and inherent complications.
Yes, it is.
Unlike with other cases where prosecutors work closely with the police to investigate what actually occurred, what we realized very early on in this case was that police investigating police, whether they're friends or merely their colleagues, was problematic.
That's right, that's right.
There was a reluctance and an obvious bias that was consistently exemplified not by the entire Baltimore Police Department, but by individuals within the Baltimore Police Department at every stage of the investigation, which became blatantly apparent in the subsequent trials. Although Commissioner Davis was and has been extremely accommodating, there were individual police officers that were witnesses to the case, yet were part of the investigative team. Interrogations that were conducted without asking the most poignant questions. Lead detectives that were completely uncooperative and started a counter-investigation to disprove the state's case by not executing search warrants pertaining to text messages among the police officers involved in the case, creating videos to disprove the state's case without our knowledge, creating notes that were drafted after the case was launched to contradict the medical examiner's conclusion, turning these notes over to defense attorneys months prior to turning them over to the state, and yet doing it in the middle of trial. As you can see, whether investigating, interrogating, testifying, cooperating, or even complying with the state, we've all bore witness to an inherent bias that is a direct result of when police themselves. And despite the challenges of not having an independent investigatory agency to work with us throughout this prosecution, we still are grateful for the opportunity to show the world the reality of the justice system from start to finish. At every step of the way, due process was afforded all of these officers, and the legitimacy of our prosecution efforts were affirmed time and time again. They were affirmed when the court commissioner signed off on the charges that we filed. They were yet again affirmed when we presented our case before a grand jury and secured indictments against all 6 officers in every charge that we presented to them. Our legal arguments, theories, strategies were affirmed not only in 135 motions in which we successfully overcame, but also in the state's highest court, where we battled and ultimately prevailed in compelling the officers to testify against each other. The legitimacy of these charges were even affirmed by the judge after he rejected 13 motions for dismissal and denied 22 motions for judgment of acquittal throughout all 4 trials. As prosecutors, we are ministers of justice, and it is our ethical obligation to always seek justice over convictions. As prosecutors, we do not determine guilt or innocence of individuals, but rather present evidence to a judge or a jury to make that determination. In these cases, my prosecutors presented a great deal of evidence to support the charges alleged. And although we came close to convicting one of the officers,
Alex Sanchez, a lot of people have went after a prosecutor, Marilyn J. Mosby. We did have Beth Karras here a couple weeks ago, and she said they overcharged the prosecutors for this case. But that's her press conference addressing that she was not going to prosecute any more officers, and 2 out of the first 3 officers used the bench trial. 1 was acquitted, and I believe 1 was hung. But what do you make of some of the things she said, like, quote, in other cases like this one, prosecutors work with the police? That's some strong words.
I think that this prosecutor Mosley is an absolute disgrace. That's what I think. She's not the head of some civil rights organization. And if you were the head of some type of civil rights organization or some type of community organizing event or something like that, then that's fine. You can make those type of statements. you're a prosecutor, and it was so obvious from the beginning when she took this case, she was acting, that it was very questionable about the way she was acting. She was acting more like a political advocate instead of a prosecutor, okay? A prosecutor is supposed to be objective. Instead, she jumped on this bandwagon of we're going to stop police brutality in the United States practically, and then she started quoting all these other cases. That's nonsense. That's not what prosecutors are supposed to be doing. And as a matter of fact, you know, she went around quoting, there was 135 motions. There was all kinds of applications to get the case dismissed. Well, you know what? When push came to shove and they finally tried the case, the judge there was saying, what kind of nonsense is this? This case is absolute nonsense. You're coming in here with these bizarre theories that are not rooted in the law. And it was the judge, an African-American judge, who threw all those cases out. And finally, the prosecutor Mosley's chief assistant, she didn't mention this, but her chief assistant who was trying the case after the second trial said, listen, I'm not going to continue with these trials, okay? It would be unethical or improper for me to go on with these trials at this point. And so she finally ended up quitting. And that's why Mosley finally threw up her hands. So, you know, you listen to Mosley, she makes it sound like this is some type of victory speech. This isn't a victory speech. Right. Okay? Every single one of the charges against those cops got thrown out. But even, let me tell you something, even if there was a clear-cut case where those cops engaged in egregious and horrible violations of people's conduct, that prosecutor's conduct is still egregious because prosecutors are simply supposed to get up there and say, we've investigated this, present it to a grand jury, and now it's up to a jury to make that determination of whether these people are guilty or innocent. I'm the prosecutor in the case, but we defer to the justice system. That's what you say. Don't get up there making all your little nonsense political statements. We don't want to hear that. We want justice in this country. That's what we want.
We certainly do. And she was out there screaming like she was on the WWE or something. It was really like, I don't know, it was like an old school type deal. I mean, I don't know why she needs, like you said, it was like a victory speech.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, there's a law professor out there in Maryland who's filing charges against her, claiming that she acted unethical, she withheld evidence from the defense, and she engaged in a whole bunch of other actions of prosecutorial misconduct. And you know what? I'd be afraid if I were her, because there was another prosecutor that engaged in prosecutorial misconduct. His name was Naifong. Remember him? Yeah, with
sure
that rape case. That's right. And you know what? Naifong ended up getting thrown out of the district attorney's office and disbarred. And it's not outside the realm of possibility that can happen with this Mosley. Okay, don't mix up your job as a district attorney with like some type of civil rights advocate, because you're a district attorney. Those are two separate roles, okay? And that's what she did. She tried to blend them together as if she was the people's advocate or something. You're the district attorney. You're supposed to be objective. You're supposed to be cool and unemotional and stoic, a lot like Joe is, for example, when you take on a case. You study the facts and you present them to a grand jury. That's not the way she's acting.
No, and Joe, I'm sure you agree with Alex, right?
I got two pieces of evidence to present here.
Okay.
First off, I think one of the most egregious things here that's glaring to me, why was this left in the hands of the prosecutor for the city of Baltimore and that county to handle? Why was this case not turned over to the Maryland State Police to conduct an independent investigation and have the state's attorney general handle this case? I have a real problem with that. I had a problem with it in St. Louis when those events took place. That the state police should have been called in immediately to handle those things. You got 6 officers here. They're gonna when these cops think that they're being attacked, and 6 of their own are being attacked by this petulant, judicious jerk yeah, they're gonna close ranks, and she's not going to get any cooperation. If she had done this in a professional manner and said, look, we need somebody to come in from the outside and take a look at this thing other than my office, we're going to just hand this over to the state's attorney general, the state of Baltimore, and, have them handle it. The state of Maryland, and have them handle it. It would have been, or have a special prosecutor appointed in this case. It would have been much wiser. And one more thing, I think, that kind of stands out in my mind. She used the term she said, as a prosecutor, and forgive me, I'll probably get this wrong, as a prosecutor, we are ministers of justice. No, you're not. You're a prosecutor. You're not a minister of anything. And if you want to go to church, I'll tell you what, go to seminary. Go to seminary, go get ordained as a pastor somewhere, if that's what you want. All of this grandstanding nonsense. It's really interesting. She has this opportunity. To have this big bully pulpit now, to stand before the world and shake her fist, again, like some petulant little child that didn't get her way, and scream to the top of her lungs, while these six police officers have been pilloried in a case that does not hold water. And let me tell you the evidence of this. The reason it doesn't hold water is that if this thing was truly this egregious, why isn't the FBI touching this thing on civil rights basis? Why are they not conducting a federal probe into this and bringing federal charges against these guys? I'll tell you why. Because they know better than this. This is a dog with fleas. They will not touch this thing with a vaccinated crowbar. I don't think any prosecutor in their right mind would. So I don't know. This thing really struck a chord with me. As a matter of fact, after hearing her talk as long as I did, I've got my earbuds in right now. I think my eardrums might be hemorrhaging. I'm not really sure.
Okay, one last topic, and that'll be Mr. Donald Trump in the middle of a press conference. There was a baby crying. Here's the soundbite from that, and then we'll get to that story.
Don't worry about that baby. I love babies. So I love babies. I hear that baby crying. I like.
Trump was involved in another controversy today when a baby began crying at his Virginia rally.
The biggest in the world, the Chinese bank. Don't worry about that baby. I love babies. So.
But the baby kept right on crying, leading to this.
Actually, I was only kidding. You can get the baby out of here.
We spoke to a local reporter who was standing near the baby's mother.
She had that look on her face like, please, will you please stop? Will you please stop? Not right now. And then after it started again, and he said, I'm just kidding, get the baby out of here. She kind of beeline to the door.
You can get the baby out of here.
All right, Alex, so what do you make of Donald Trump? Was he right to say get the baby out of here?
Let me tell you something. Edgar Allan Poe had a great line. There are chords in the human heart that one must never cross. And I looked at that tape and I read about it. There was something dark there. There really was.
Yeah.
Whether you like Donald Trump or not. But there was something dark. Because at first he said, I love babies. And, you can't get more American than loving babies. I happen to love kids. And, kids crying, that doesn't bother me. There was a lady in my office the other day, a kid was crying and acting. I was just laughing practically. And he sounded very merry about it. But then something changed. There was a dark cloud that suddenly came over. And he basically said, get that baby out of here. And then he said she thought I was serious. He revealed something of a very dark nature about himself when he did that. And that's what happens with people. And I say this all the time, that ultimately you cannot completely cover and disguise yourself forever. Some people are very good at disguising themselves. They say all the right things. They have all the right mannerisms. They're very polite. But sooner or later, the truth of who you are emerges. It's going to come out at some point. And with Donald Trump, some people say it's repeatedly come out. But this was perhaps one of the most darkest episodes I've seen about how he feels and his sentiments, and how when he gets annoyed, it's like something dark comes over him. And it'll, believe it or not, it almost reminds me of some criminals I've represented. You know, I had a guy one time who was arrested for torturing somebody. And sometimes I'd speak to him, and he'd go, "Oh, Mr. Sanchez, how are you? Thank you so much for representing me." And the next second, he'd be like, "Ah!" like a maniac. And it was scary almost. That's who he is. That's who he is.
Well, there are some new polls that indicate that Clinton has the lead now, but who knows? We got a ways away till November. But Joe Scott, Morgan, so say you on Donald Trump with this baby incident.
Oh, yeah. It did have a very, I like Alex's term. It was kind of a foreboding cloud that kind of seeped in there, because you kind of saw him, his face kind of went blank there for a second. After he did sound rather jolly when he was first, and you're thinking, hey, he's got grandkids, he's had babies. He knows what it's like to have a squalling youngin', as we say in the South. All of a sudden, man, he did turn a bit interesting reaction. There's a long way to go in this thing. It's every morning I wake up, I get my cup of coffee, I go and sit with my wife, and we just sit there and say, what chaos has been wrought overnight, and just sit back and watch. It's like the entire world is on fire.
It was almost, his reaction. I mean, you may consider this over the top, but it was almost demonic in nature. There was something it was diabolical almost, really. When you think about it, you study it. It really was. Kids are always off limits. Always.
Yeah.
And he crossed a line that you cannot uncross.
Okay, let's go out to some callers. 843 is the area code. Please state your name and where you're calling from. You're live on King Jordan Radio. You're next. 843. Your line is open.
Yeah, how you doing? Yeah, you guys, how you doing?
Hi, can I have your name?
Yeah, my name is Robert.
Hi, Rob.
Interesting.
What's on your mind today?
Hey, I'm just out here trying to get information on, hearing what people are saying about, where America is today. So it is interesting.
Okay. Thanks for the call. Let's go out to Huntington Beach, California. Our friend is Sarah. She says hello. Good evening, Sarah, and welcome back to the King Jordan Radio Show.
Well, hello, gentlemen.
Hey, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
How are you?
I'm good. Lots of topics tonight. My goodness. Well, the only thing I have to say about Donald Trump is, and I'm not saying for or against, I'm just saying he needs earbuds in his ears connected to me, because this man needs he needs somebody to say, what are you doing? And I think I would have said, go over there and hug that baby. Just go hug that baby. But that wasn't going to happen. Okay, that's all I have to say about Trump. I'm not going there with politics. However, we started off tonight with George Zimmerman, POS that he is. And, the only thing I can say really and truly is because I watched that trial, and he was very, very lucky to have the jury that he had. There is so much to be said about the makeup of a jury. And I think that I think that's what did it for him. I think it wasn't. That's all I could say about him. Now we have to talk about the dentist, because out of all the stories that we talked about, this is so awful. Another baby murdered. Because I truly don't believe that it was an injury. I mean, my goodness, he's 19 months old. He probably weighs between 12 and 19 pounds. So what force could he possibly have done to himself to have 2 skull fractures? I mean, I'm not a physics expert. I'm not a forensics expert like Joseph. But, no, this baby did not injure himself at all. And I just am so tired, like so many people, so many of your good friends, Jordan, that call in all the time, especially my buddy Mary. We're so tired of our babies and children being murdered by parents, by boyfriends. And the only thing that I wish would change is, I don't care how this person says whatever happened. If it's proven with the prosecutors, because I like prosecutors, so I want them to be able to prove a good case. I just don't think intent should be in the equation. I think if a baby is dead and a child is dead, I don't care what your intent was. If you intended to punish the child, to me, take intent out and then punish these people for killing and murdering and torturing and molesting children. Now, onward to Baltimore. Well, okay, what a horrible, horrible thing that yet another person, Freddie Gray, died in the hands of police officers. Now, I have been reading everything I possibly can because there were no cameras in the courtroom, and I believe that it was a horrible, horrible accident. And I don't believe that criminal charges should have been brought against any of the officers. And I can't use the word glad or happy. I have to say that I am relieved that all of the charges have been dropped, because there is no happiness or anything like that in a case like this. You just have to be relieved that the justice system worked. That being said, we all know that there are some rotten boys and girls in blue. There really and truly are. And I really think that there has to be better policing for the police. And it bothers me that there's so much hatred among citizens and towards the police department. And it's almost like if you take a police department who's so hated and verbally abused, well, what happens to that verbally abused child or person? They get angry and they get frustrated, and maybe then they kind of lose control. I mean, I don't know. That's just a little theory that I have. That could be eating all these police officers up, and they just want to say, I can't stand this anymore. But I do have to say one thing. When my son, when he was really young, obviously he was always with us, or he was with an adult or whatever, and I wasn't so worried about him encountering police officers. But the day that he got his driver's license, when he was 16 years old, I thought, okay, he can come into contact with police officers. And we told him, and I just wish, I don't mean to make a joke out of it, I wish people would just listen and tell their kids, if you don't comply, you can die. And we were serious. And this is years ago. It's not anything new that all of a sudden, if you don't comply, something bad's going to happen. This comes from respecting authority and realizing that the police officer in that moment has every right to do what they're going to do. And I just wish people would comply. And now, gentlemen, I'm done.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome,
Sarah.
Good to hear from you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Sarah made some good points. And we definitely did cover a lot of things. Zimmerman, Gray, and that story with the dentist is just awful. Awful. But with that in mind, Joseph, if you want to plug anything before we go, be my guest. We'll go to Alex.
Hey, just for me, hey, all I have to say is if you're in need of great legal help, go see my friend Alex Sanchez at his offices.
Yes.
Located where, Alex?
Bronx,
Somewhere
New York.
New York.
Joe, you're my kind of guy. You really are. You know.
You should make a commercial for your your office. But anyway, thanks
and if
so
you
much.
need, if you need to read a book, if you need
yes.
to read a good book, what's the name of that book? Dead Men Tell No Lies, Joe. You know,
blood beneath my feet.
Oh, that's it.
That's it. Dead Men Tell No Lies. Blood beneath
great
my
book.
feet. Yeah.
Yes, definitely eat before you read that book.
Alex is such a great attorney. He's such a great defense attorney. He almost makes you want to go out and break the law.
That's it.
Oh, that's a good one.
I hope you're not encouraging people to commit crimes.
I'm not going up there. Hey,
we
let
have
me tell you
plenty of
something.
those
I'm not going to go up and jump any turnstiles, okay?
Well, I defend you for free, Joe. Don't worry about that.
All right.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, Alex, have a good night. Have a good night, Joe.
Hey,
Speak
good
to you
night,
guys
Joe.
later.
Hey, thank you, brother. We appreciate it. Best to everybody in the audience.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much to Joseph Scott Morgan and Alex Sanchez. They did a great job with all these topics. Say hello to Maddie. Say hello to Pager and everybody else, Ricky, who listens in, and Sarah, Mary, and you guys are the best. Check us out at King Jordan Radio. You haven't heard, Tom Mesereau will be on the program on the 18th of August, starting at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So check out that. Okay, we're going to leave you with Usher live as we go Throwback Thursday. Take it easy, folks. We'll speak to you next time here on King Jordan Radio.